It is week 9 of the college football season. We have 6 picks on the way. Let's dive into them real quick and go 6-0. It is Austin, joined by Logan. Let's recap last week, a 1-2 day for each of us. Ohio State was my only winner. USC just didn't look good, and Luther Burden got injured. Ended up with 90 yards, but it was a blowout, so they didn't really need to pass it in that fourth quarter. Logan on the other side, a 1-2 day, had the Ole Miss Auburn under. I swear his Duke pick your Duke pick probably should have hit, but just a brutal beat there, as I believe they lost by 18. Just had no interest in trying to backdoor at the end. The Michigan State plus 24. Yeah, no shot. But let's dive into our picks this weekend. Nothing else to promote. We do have a ton of other videos coming up on the channel, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't miss out on it. Now that we have like a sports equinox. I mean, we don't do NHL, but that's on. But MLB's back, NBA's here, NFL too. So all those videos will be posted on the channel. Go check out our favorite picks there. But for my pick, I'm going the first one, Georgia, Florida. Going a big game under. I'm taking here at 50 points, minus 125 on DraftKings. Personally, I would play it to right around 48-ish or so, but I don't think the line really changes a ton from the 49.5. 50 I'm seeing on most books. But let's talk about the Florida offense, who I'm not really too high on in this matchup. Now, you look at their last two matchups, they've honestly looked really, really good with facing Vanderbilt and South Carolina. Give them a round of applause. You beat two defenses that absolutely stink. Now they get a real test against Georgia, a team that's allowing just 270 yards per game, 14 points per game. Like, I don't really think Graham Mertz, the Florida QB, is all that good. And sure, he looked great the last 2 weeks, but you went up against a really good defense. And I don't think South Carolina, if you're a South Carolina Gamecocks fan, you know how bad that defense is. They have stunk. But we look at this Georgia D-line. I think they're going to be able to make those defensive plays, really force Mertz into throwing some short passes. And I really don't necessarily think you're going to see a lot of big plays out of Mertz. He's not really, a big play, deep kind of guy. So if Florida is to have some success here, I think it's a lot of dinking and dunking down the field, chewing the clock. And I really think when they get to the red zone, if they do get there, it's not going to be a lot of touchdowns. I think they'll have to settle for some field goals against the very stout Georgia defense. And then when you think, in my opinion, this one comes down to the Florida defense. How do they show up? Because we know Georgia can go out there and put up 40 points on their own and really screw us here. But I think with 2 weeks to prepare for this game, I think the Florida defense will be up to the task. I mean, this is a defense that has been up and down this season. Some games they look really good. Some games they look bad. I think they're going to show up and play pretty well. This also will be Georgia's first game without Brock Bowers this season. He's out for, I believe, 4 to 6 weeks with his ankle injury. So I think they're going to struggle to really consistently move the ball against this team. We think about Brock Bowers. They use him in many different ways. They were throwing it to him, running the ball with him. He was honestly their gadget guy that just was an absolute beast. We know he'll be probably a first-round pick this upcoming NFL draft. And at the end of the day, Georgia really hasn't played a lot of road games. Only 2 of them this season. One was at Auburn. They won that one 27-20. They didn't really play all too well. They needed 157 yards from Bowers. The other was last week against Vandy, who honestly, it's not a road game. It's Vandy. They absolutely stink. So, look, I think a team that relied on Bowers a ton to move the football will have to find some other playmakers. And while they definitely have the talent there, I think it's going to take a little bit of adjustment. And on the road, while this isn't in the swamp in Gainesville, still on the road, it is in Jacksonville, so it's going to be more of, it's a neutral site game, but still not in Athens, where I think their offense has been the best. On the road, I like the under in this one. I know no one likes to root for unders, but I think this is a good spot to back an under in this spot. Georgia, Florida, taking the under at 50 points, minus 125. My first pick of the weekend. But Logan, I need a bounce back week from you. What's your first pick this weekend going to be?
So for my first pick, I'm going to UMass versus Army, and I'm taking an under as well. I'm taking the under 50.5 total points, minus 110 odds on DraftKings for this one. Now, we look at these two teams. They both put goose eggs up in their last showing. UMass ended up losing 63-0 to Penn State in their last outing, while Army took on LSU and lost 62-0. Not pretty final scores for either of these teams. And offensively, look at UMass. The Minutemen threw for only 45 yards on 23 attempts in the running game. They only averaged 1.6 yards per attempt with a total of 64 yards. Just a lackluster offense all around. Army, they were trailing a lot in that game, but they only finished with 42 passing yards on 15 attempts versus LSU. This is the battle of two terrible offenses. UMass ranks 101st, which is with just 22.8 points per game in the FBS in total scoring offense, while Army sits at 91st, 24.5 points per game. Army has not scored points since week 6. These two offenses just scream taken under. It's pretty intuitive for this one. We look at UMass also. They're giving up 224.9 rushing yards on average, which is third to last among all FBS defenses this season. Army, no secret what they want to do. They want to run the ball. They want to chew clock. They want to just play possession football. That is perfect for an under in this one. No shootout potential. I think the under is clearly the way to go. The edge comes to the Army defense that outside of the OSU game has been playing pretty well, actually. They're only allowing 20.17 points per game. They should have enough strong defense to cause UMass to be pretty inept offensively, and I think the under is the clear way to go in this one.
Logan, we're both on unders. What could go wrong? I'm going to go to this pick. It's going to be a same game parlay and arguably the biggest game this weekend, Oregon versus Utah. Here's my same game parlay. It's 2 legs. Oregon money line and the under at 56.5, which is currently minus 115 on Bet365. Now, this is a 2-leg same game parlay. If I had to, gun to my head, had to bet a spread in this one, I would take Oregon minus the points, but I really think this is a low scoring game, maybe a field goal type game, maybe a 4 or 5 point type victory for the Ducks. I think this is going to be a tough game. I mean, Utah's really good at home. I just think Oregon's the more experienced program, which is why I like them on the money line. They could cover the 6.5. I just could see maybe Utah coming in hot at the end, maybe backdooring that, or maybe we just see, Bo Nix have to make that drive at the end to win this game by a field goal or something of that nature. But the reason I like the under at 50, I mean, we upped it from 56.5. I think the regular line's about 47, 48.5. But you look at both defenses are really good. Utah's got a stout defense at home. They'll be up to the task. And then Oregon's defense has been really good as well. Now, their offense hasn't necessarily looked as good as they have at home as it will be on the road in this one, but I still do think that at the end of the day, Bo Nix has seen everything really in college football, played in a ton of different games, played in some hostile environments. I think he makes enough plays for Oregon to win this game, but we could see them struggle a little bit. I mean, this is a Utah defense that has really humbled a lot of opponents out there. They've played really, really good. I just think Oregon has too much talent on both sides of the football to not win this game outright, but Utah's no slouch. If they won this game, I wouldn't be like, what the? No, they're a really good program, but I still do think Bo Nix will be able to win this game for him. I don't really like the Utah offense. It's been really wishy-washy this season. It's been unpredictable, really inconsistent, and I think this is a good spot to take Oregon on the road. Normally, I don't like laying points on the road, which is why I'm not taking the minus 6.5, but I do think Oregon, if they're going to have a chance of winning the Pac-12, which I already lost to Washington, or even making the college football playoffs, they need a win here in the worst way, and I just don't trust Utah's offense a ton. I think their defense keeps them in this game, which is why I like the under, but their offense has not looked good outside of that USC game, which honestly, scoring points against USC doesn't really count in my book. USC stinks. And I learned that the hard way last week. But I like Bo Nix. I like the Oregon money line. I think they could win this game. And I like the alt under at 56.5. We got some wiggle room as opposed to the regular under, which is sitting around like 47, 48.5. So I really like this 2-leg same game parlay. Not necessarily crazy odds. If you want to take Oregon money line and the regular under, you can. But I rather try to get a winner here with the money line and the alt under at 56.5. I think it's a great spot to back the Ducks and on the road and the under in a lower scoring game. I like it. That's my second pick of the weekend. But Logan, I need another winner. What are you going for your second pick this week?
For my second pick, I'm going to a team that hurt me real good last week. I'm taking the Duke Blue Devils plus 4.5, minus 110 odds on DraftKings for this one. Now, Duke last week, just a brutal loss at Florida State. They were leading much of that game. I thought they might even win it outright for us. We had them plus 14.5. Of course, Florida State drives down and gets a covering touchdown once Riley Leonard does go out of last week's game. Now, Duke has to turn their season around. Backs against the wall. I actually do like them to cover this 4.5. I do think 4.5 is a pretty crucial number. It covers the 4 and the 3 in football. Duke has dropped 2 out of his last 3 games, both to good opponents, so Notre Dame and Florida State, but they'll be competitive with or without Riley Leonard. Obviously, we saw him exit the game. Is this spread indicative of Riley Leonard playing? Maybe. Do we know his status? Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't really matter because I think Duke last week, they held a lot of, cards close to the vest as far as their backup quarterback. They didn't really have any sort of game plan for him. And that really showed because when they could have drove down and got a cover touchdown, they let their foot off the gas a lot. Look at on the other side, Louisville dropped its last game to a 2-5 Pitt team. That wasn't a great loss for Louisville at all. We look at how Duke has played spirited defense. This is a defense I actually do want to back. 17th in passing yards allowed. They'll be ready for Plummer. Plummer, obviously, air raid type style offense for Louisville. They'll be ready for Plummer. They faced good quarterbacks like Sam Hartman and Jordan Travis in 2 out of the last 3 weeks. So they definitely have the secondary able to defend what Louisville throws at them. Duke's defense surrenders just 13.9 points, which is 5th in the FBS, 315.9 total yards, 24th in the FBS per game, and then also 179.4 passing yards, 16th 136.4 rushing yards, 62nd. They face some really good offenses, and to me, Duke's defense has held their own. They hold their own in pass coverage, putting stress on Louisville's ground game to compensate for that, being sort of one dimensional in this one. The Louisville's top rusher, also Jordan, he's dealing with a hamstring injury that could prevent him from playing or even limit his production in this one. So Louisville's offense not completely healthy. With the 19th ranked rushing attack, Duke should lean on its ground game, 197.4 yards per game, to move the chains and to eat up the game clock on their way to cover this spread. Look, it's a low number, but I just think Duke plays really sound, football on both sides of the line of scrimmage, which is a team I want to back in college football. I want to know what I'm getting. And with this Duke team, I'm not going to let last week's, loss, cloud my vision enough. I think they do, play competitive in this game. I think it's within at least a field goal or even that 4-point spread. So I'm going to go ahead and take Duke plus 4.5 as my second pick.
And finally, what some of you guys came for, my player prop of the weekend. We are 4-2 on college football props. Never lost back to back, so hopefully that trend does not start this week. And I really do like the one I'm going to be on. Let's talk about this guy, Jonathan Brooks of the Texas Longhorns, over 104.5 rushing yards, minus 114 on FanDuel. Now he's my favorite CFB prop of the week. A little bit biased here as I will be in Texas, in Austin, Texas, to be specific, to watch this game. So I needed some skin in this game. And while I don't love Texas on the spread at minus 19, I think they're going to lean on their running back, which is Jonathan Brooks, to get over hopefully 150 rushing yards, because personally I play this about around 112.5 or so. But let's talk about this one, because we suffered a bad beat last week with Luther Bird in the third. I mostly do the college football props for people that are on daily fantasy apps like Sleeper, PrizePicks, Underdog Fantasy, because they normally don't have the ability to bet those spreads that we talked about early on in this video. But I think this is a good spot to back Mr. Jonathan Brooks. Let's talk about him. Now, like I said, boots will be on the ground, so I'll be cheering him on with everything I got in me. But we look at over the last 5 games, Brooks, here's how many rushing yards he's had: 164, 106, 218, 129, and 99 rushing yards, going over in 4 of 5. Now, the biggest thing I have liked about Brooks, 21, 18, 21, 22, and 20 rushing attempts. The man's getting like 20 rushing attempts consistently every single week, and this is a good matchup against BYU. 91st in the nation at yards per rush attempt allowed at 4.5. They've not faced a steep, task of offenses. They faced some bad teams, and they're still letting them run the football. And I think if you can run the football against BYU, or if you even commit to running the football against BYU, you will have success. Now, Texas will not have their star quarterback, Quinn Ewers, as they're able to be starting a redshirt freshman, Malik Murphy. Really hasn't thrown a ton of passes this season, has stepped in a little bit. Archie Manning maybe comes out there for a little, Archie Manning maybe comes out for a couple throws. That'd be awesome to see in person if Arch Manning's out there. Obviously, that number one, or I think it was, well, he was their number one recruit this offseason. He'll be in there at QB one of these days, probably not today though. But either way, I think Malik Murphy, they'll want to just run the football a little bit more against the BYU offense. They have the offensive line to overpower this D line of BYU. And I think at the end of the day, Texas clear favorites. They're up 19-point favorites, so they should be in a more run-heavy game script. I really do think Jonathan Brooks, we're going to get back to winning some player props. Go to 5-2. I like him. I'll be cashing it in person with you all. And if you don't have the ability to bet college football props on your book, then hopefully you just cheer on Jonathan Brooks for me. But I really do think he has a big day. We'll run with no pun intended, the Texas Longhorns running back over 104.5 rushing yards as my third and final play of the weekend. But Logan, let me hear your third and final pick. I need a 3-0 card. What you wrapping it up with?
And for my third and final pick, I'm going to the Michigan State-Minnesota game, and I'm taking the under 40.5, minus 110 odds on BetMGM there. Now, yes, 2 unders are on my card, but really, if you know, you know. I had Michigan State last week, one of my worst bets of the season all year. If you want to come after me for that pick, yeah, it was terrible. I don't know what I was doing there. Now, let's start a little bit with Minnesota, though, because this offense really doesn't do anything particularly well. They average just 21.6 points per game, which is 110th in the FBS, and barely average 300 yards per game of total offense, which is 121st in the FBS. So with so many good offensive scoring teams, why not take an under with these 2 teams? We also look at Minnesota, 123rd in passing yards per game. That's only 133 total yards per game. This is just not an offense that if you really ever watch them, not an offense you want to back. Michigan State, their offense is not any better. Yes, last week was so brutal to watch. Oh my gosh. Let's talk about their stats though real quick. 115th in rushing offense, 81st in passing offense. Just just terrible. Just a little over 200 passing yards per game for Michigan State. Last week when they were trailing, I was just kind of sitting there watching that game, and I was like, is this an FCS team? Like, I really did think. Now, Michigan, obviously a good opponent, but man, they were just treated like an FCS team last week. They had no semblance of offensive continuity. Anything I swear they were just going backwards on every single offensive drive. And both team offenses actually sort of look that way, and they both have actually solid defenses that can keep this one under the total. So the perfect recipe for an under, in my opinion. Michigan State also on a 5-game losing streak, not for a botched call last week with Minnesota. That controversial fair catch call. Minnesota would have 4 losses in 5 games. This is going to be a peak Big Ten slugfest in my opinion. You got two offenses that are pretty inept. You have 2 defenses that can definitely get them 3 and out, or at the bare minimum hold these red zone offenses to just field goals at worst. I think the under is the clear play, and I know I got 2 unders on my card, but I really do like those as my third and final pick.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is what we call a 6-0 sweep. Let's bounce back after that weird 2-4 week. Should have easily been a 4-2 week last week for us, but just a little bit of bad beats. It's college football. Things are going to happen. If you never watched it, you probably do what you want with it. College football, sometimes it's crazy for what it is. Sometimes there's just some crazy outcomes that happen. But either way, those are our 6 in favorite picks of the weekend. If you want to check out our NFL picks, I'll link that video when it is live on the channel, which NBA picks, we post those every single day. Check out that. MLB picks, we have tons of different content on the channel. Go check it out. Plus, if you want to do me a favor, I'm in San Antonio right now as we record this, and I have a Victor Wembanyama first ever NBA game. Go check out that video. I'll link it on the screen. Go show some love. It was a ton of fun to film, record. The atmosphere was awesome. Definitely wanted to check that out on the second channel. I'll also be vlogging that Texas Longhorns game, which will be posted probably in a couple weeks. But it's Austin and Logan. We're signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.